Unit B1, construct validity. Construct validity. Well, Cronbach called validation a never-ending process because it should be updated as new data, populations, and uses of tests appear. Previously, validity was considered a one-time check. Researchers collected test scores with an external criteria like school grades, and if correlation was high, declared the test is valid. In this mode, it seems that validity is a fixed property of test itself, summarized by a single coefficient. Cronbach shifted the focus toward construct validity. Test scores are indicators of underlying unobservable traits, constructs, and variation in constructs lead to variation in scores. As constructs are theoretical and unobservable, different kinds of evidence, that is correlation, group differences, are needed over time to justify interpreting scores as measure of those constructs. Now, Cronbach and Mill construct validity in psychological tests. There are four types of validation in this perspective. One, predictive validity. The extent to which test scores predict performance on criteria measured at later time. Test is administered first. Independent criteria measure is obtained sometime later after the test. Validity is evaluated by computing correlation between test scores and later criterion scores. Now, concurrent validity, second one. The extent to which test scores correlate with a criteria measured at essentially the same time. Test scores and criteria scores are obtained simultaneously. It is often examined when one test is proposed as a substitute for another. For example, multiple choice replacing dictation. A test is shown to correlate with a contemporary criteria. 3. Content validity. Content validity is established by showing that test items constitute a representative sample of universe of content the investigator wishes to measure. The universe of items is defined in advance. Items are systematically sampled from this universe, the content. Content validity is established deductively, not by correlation with external criteria. 4. Construct validity. Construct validity is involved whenever a test is interpreted as a measure of some attribute or quality that is not appropriately defined, and we should capture that construct. The central question is what constructs account for variance in test performance. Construct validity does not rely on single procedure or criteria. It becomes essential when not fully adequate criteria or content universe is available. It refers to investigators' theoretical orientation and is considered ultimate standard of validity. Distinguishing four types of validity with respect to their emphasis on criteria. Predictive validity or concurrent one. The focus is on criterion behavior, one future, another present. The tester is not concerned about type of behavior shown in tests. For example, an employer does not care if a worker can manipulate blocks, but scores on block tests may predict something he cares about. Content validity. The tester is concerned with the type of behavior involved in the test performance. If a test is a work sample, behavior represented in test may be an end itself. In other words, representativeness of test content is important. Construct validity. Focus is on underlying trait or quality. It is used when tester has no criterion measure of quality which he is concerned and must use indirect measure. Here, the trait or quality underlying a test is central importance rather than the test behavior or scores on criteria. Now, validation procedure, different methods in construct validation. We have group differences. In this kind, construct validity can be obtained by known group validation. If a construct theory predicts systematic differences between groups, test scores should reflect those differences. Demonstrating significant score differences provides support for intended construct interpretation, whereas failure to find such difference calls the construct validity of test into question. Correlation matrix and factor analysis. Next kind. In this type, construct validity is supported through analysis of intercorrelation among measures. Tests used to measure the same construct should show positive correlation, convergent evidence, while lower correlation with measures of different constructs provide divergent evidence. Factor analysis is used to examine whether test items group together into factors that correspond to theoretical components of construct or not. Now, studies of internal structure, another kind. Degree of homogeneity among test items supports validity. Items should reflect meaningful intercorrelation. However, high internal consistency supports construct validity only when the items have unidimensionality. Studies for changeover location, another kind. Construct validity can be evaluated through establishing and changing test scores over time. Test-retest reliability provides evidence of temporal stability, but the interpretation of stability depends on theoretical nature of construct. Constructs assumed to be stable should show consistency, while constructs which expected to be vary should demonstrate systematic change across occasions. Here the point is experimental intervention we can have. Stronger construct validity is obtained through experimental intervention. If interventions influence test scores, this supports the interpretation that test reflects construct. Coachability of tests. Construct validity is examined by assessing effects of coaching. If coaching improves performance on an ability, score supports validity. If coaching only improves test-taking strategies without affecting the construct, tests show poor construct validity. Studies of process. Construct validity can be supported by process analysis, which investigates cognitive and behavioral process underlying test performance. Observations of response strategies, errors, problem-solving behaviors help to determine whether test scores reflect intended construct or affect by unintended skills such as reading ability. Summary of this part: name different methods in construct validation. Group differences. 2. Correlation matrix and factor analysis. 3. Studies of internal structure. 4. Studies of change over time. It means two kinds: experimental intervention and coachability of test. And 5. Studies of process. The nomological net principles. To make clear what something is means to set laws in which it occurs, we refer to the system of laws which constitute a theory as a nomological network. The laws in nomological network may relate to observable quantities to each other, theoretical constructs of observable, different theoretical constructs to one another. 3. A necessary condition for a construct to be acceptable is that it occurs in a nomological network, setting laws. Here. 4. Learning more about a construct is a matter of elaborating nomological network in which it occurs. 5. An enrichment of the net, such as adding a construct or a relationship to theory is justified if it generates nomenologicals that are confirmed by observation. 6. Different operations can overlap or measure the same thing when their places in nomenological net tied them to the same construct variable.